Welcome to Ask a Therapist, a show where qualified therapists stop by to answer all your questions. Hey you, welcome to another episode of Ask a Therapist. This is a show where you get all the questions you've ever wanted to ask a therapist or a counselor answered by a therapist or a counselor. How can you get your questions to us? Well, it's really simple. In the show notes, there's a question form. Drop it there. Keep listening to the episodes to hear your answer. My name is Adele Onyango and I will be your host. And in a bit, we'll be joined by our therapist this season, who is Daisy. In this episode, we'll hear answers to questions dealing with forgiveness and even questions around dating older men. But first, let's talk about Daisy. She's going to be answering all your questions in this first season of Ask a Therapist. She's a founder and lead counselor at ConvoCare, and she started this organization during COVID where the need for physical, psychological, emotional, and spiritual support was very apparent. I feel like we all experienced that we needed that during COVID, right? And if you're wondering, what can you expect when you reach out to ConvoCare? This organization Daisy founded to be able to make wellness resources like different forms of therapy more accessible and just softer. I don't know if you get the same sense when you listen to Daisy. She's just so pleasant and soft. Anyway, when you reach out at ConvoCare, the first thing that happens is you go through consultation. This is basically the first stop for you to determine if the therapist is going to be a good fit for you. In this consultation, you can ask all the questions you want just to know that you're fully comfortable with the therapist. And if you are, in the consultation, you can then set how frequent your therapy sessions are going to be, on what days, etc. The logistics. But I always tell people, looking for the therapist that fits with you is almost like dating, you know? So you can go on a couple of dates until you find the one. Even when it comes to therapists, trust me. So consultation sessions are super important. The next step that comes is the actual therapy sessions, right? And for ConvoCare, they come with a couple of activities in the way that they have structured their therapy sessions. So there's mental assessments, there's psychometric tests, there's different exercises, there's assignments. And I love seeing that because my most effective therapy has been with therapists who take that approach. So we have assignments, we have exercises. I don't know, for me, that just works so much better. The last thing that comes with ConvoCare is something I haven't seen anywhere else actually, is mentorship and follow-up. So after you've terminated your therapy sessions, they don't tell you get out, let's forget about you. No, they will still reach out to find out if you're coping well and still offer you mentorship and support even after you have gone through the therapy sessions. So what therapy exactly do they offer? Different kinds. So there's tension release, right? Where they create spaces where individuals can release tension. And they have rage rooms, which is super interesting. They have child and adolescent counseling, adult counseling, and individual therapy. They have online therapy. I know in our community, we have people who are from different countries. If you wanted to connect with a therapist who, especially if you're African, understands the cultural context of what you're experiencing, you may want to look into that. They have group counseling, couples therapy, corporate counseling, psychometric testing, which I talked about earlier on. And they also make great content around mental health advocacy. So I love that they are our first stop when it comes to this show, Ask a Therapist. So if you want to book one of their different therapies, or you just want to reach out and do the first step, consult, all you have to do is check out the show notes. We've put their email and their phone number, as well as links to their social media in case you want to connect with Daisy. And now, let's get right into answering all your questions. It's great to have you again,
Thank you.
Daisy. And we've got a bunch of questions from our community. And the first one in this episode is it okay to never forgive a parent who wronged you?
Okay, wow.
That's heavy, especially
Yes.
like in the African context, because it's almost like parents can do no wrong, but we know they can. Yeah.
Okay, so forgiveness is a personal decision. This might not fit everybody, but forgiveness is a personal decision. So depending on different situations. So for example, if there is constant harm, you're constantly going through the abuse over and over again, it is okay for you to choose not to forgive them. It is also okay if it's affecting your healing journey or your mental health, you can choose not to forgive them. However, there are benefits of forgiveness. How? Number one is that you get to release yourself emotionally. Not remember, it's not a must that when you forgive someone, you continue with the relationship with them. Forgiving them could mean that you release yourself from it, and it fastens the healing journey. It also allows you to point out whatever the effects of the relationship have been, and therefore be more aware when you're dealing with other people, so that you do not carry the trauma around with you. Yeah.
And if I don't forgive you, can I still have a relationship with you? Is that possible?
Wow. Okay. It is possible. People do continue with the relationships but carrying bitterness, but it does strain the relationship.
Yeah. Because every time you see their face, you just remember, hey.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. How do you deal with childhood trauma when you're still living with the person causing it? That's heavy.
Yeah. So that makes healing even harder, because now you're still in the same environment. So the best approach is for you to be able to leave that environment so that healing can be without the trauma repeating itself. However, if you, for example, if you're in school and you have to be with parents who have caused trauma for you before, it's important for you, number one, to be self-aware, where you notice what is happening. Number two, come up with coping mechanisms. If I notice my dad comes home when he's drunk and abuses me, maybe I can make sure that I have music in my ears when he comes in, so that I don't hear what he's saying. Developing coming up with a safe space, both emotionally and physically, where you can always go back to, and get out of the environment so that you can self-regulate. Also seeking support, maybe leaning on a relative who can listen to you, or seeking support by involving a professional like a therapist, and then having a future plan where you're not just stuck in this situation, but at some point you find ways to actually leave that environment, because the best approach is for you to leave that environment and be able to heal without being in it.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
What does my childhood have to do with how I choose men? Is it weird I always prefer men much older than me?
Wow. I get that question a lot.
Really? This is heavy. Oh my goodness.
Okay. I wouldn't call it weird for anyone who prefers to have older men, but we would look at each case differently. So is it that you prefer very older men who are older, and also is it because of something that you carry from the past, so unresolved issues? So it is possible that you could be having a father wound, where you feel like you need men who are older because maybe you didn't get that love from a dad. So you constantly are looking for a dad who in your romantic partners. Also, it is possible that there are role models that you saw. Again, we are who we are because of our childhood and what we saw. So it could have been modeled to you. Or your dad was older than your mom, for example, and you saw how things worked. And so you wish that things were the same for you. So it is always, so every case should be treated differently. And for the person that asked this question, maybe you need to analyze and see, is it for the healthy reasons that you find yourself with older men, or is it that you have a need that needs to be fulfilled from probably a dad wound. Yeah.
That is so interesting. I feel like before we get into relationships, there's so much childhood trauma we have to unpack,
yes.
right? I hope this episode gave you insights that can help you on your healing journey. Remember to send in your questions via our question form. There's a link to it in the show notes. Also in the show notes, if you want to book a consultation or get right into therapy with ConvoCare, we've put their email there and their phone number, as well as links to their Instagram in case you want to connect with Daisy directly. Episodes of Ask a Therapist go out every single Friday. And if you enjoyed this episode, please give us a 5-star rating. And most importantly, share it with your friends and even your enemies. That's all for this episode. If you have a question to ask a therapist, please drop it in our question form. A link to it is in the show notes. Catch you next week for the next episode of Ask a Therapist.